Hello, dear viewer, it's that weird creature from the Parabola music video. No, not that one, this one. I asked my viewers to give me the greatest song they've ever heard. I did this before and was put onto some incredible music, so I thought, why not do it again? If you'd like a guaranteed spot in these community poll videos, be sure to become a member. I'd really appreciate the support. Anyway, let's dive in. RJ Scooper says, "Be quiet and drive far away, Deftones." I know I've glazed it a ton before, but it's my baby girl and I love it oh so dearly. Go-tier track for sure. I've spoken on this track many times, but I just can't stop. Everything about this track is seriously absurd. The guitar work on this track I'd describe as legendary, to be honest. It's not all that flashy, but the tone of this song and the atmosphere I think is heavily carried by the guitar. Gino with a fantastic vocal performance as well. This is one of the best songs I've ever heard, and comfortably my favorite Deftones track. Go-tier. Max B3 says, "Mayonnaise" by the Smashing Pumpkins. Another one of my favorite songs ever. This one flat out in my top 10 of all time. Lyrically an absolutely heartbreaking track, and a very vulnerable one from Billy Corgan. Seriously one of the best songwriters of all time, dare I say, better than Kurt Cobain, though do not I pretend Billy Corgan retired after A Door's release. Another super immersive track and just straight up a masterpiece. Absolutely, one of the best songs I've ever heard. Top of the go-tier. Jazzy Hand says, "Parabola" by Tool. All the instruments on their own are heavenly, but together create a song that's just perfect, with the cherry on top being MJK's vocals and lyrics. I fear I've opened the video with 3 tracks directly out of the Mysto playbook. I love this album to death, and this song, or I guess these songs, are a massive reason for that. It's an incredibly beautiful track, both sonically and lyrically, I'd say. A song about the magic of the situation we all find ourselves in. We're all alive. It's a song that, through its perhaps rough exterior, is a genuine celebration of life. It's got one of the greatest transitions I've ever heard. It's got masterful instrumentation. This is another go to my books, honestly. This is go-tier. Behind Mayonnaise. Nonagon TF says, "If you could save yourself, you'd save us all" by Ween. My mistake. It was actually the first 4 tracks that come directly out of my playbook. Ween quickly becoming my favorite band of all time, I think. And Quebec as an album, I would say, is a majority of the reason for that. Don't get me wrong, I love the Mollusk to death. But Quebec as an album is just so incredibly raw and vulnerable. It's hard to imagine it comes from the same band that made The Pod and Pure Guava. This track, a masterful conclusion to an already unfathomably good record, an incredibly heartfelt farewell from Jenner, on the surface to his wife, but to me it feels even bigger than that. You and I both know that Quebec really serves as the end of Ween. La Cucaracha exists, but it's really just a husk of what Ween once was. To me, this track feels like a farewell to the industry, a beautiful concluding piece of one of my favorite albums of all time, back of the GOAT tier. Big Kale 8714 says, "Flying Whales" by Gojira. Breathtaking opening and some of the rawest vocals and instrumentals in all of Prague. Absolutely sensational prog metal track right here. And I couldn't agree more about that opening sequence. Seriously, some of the best build-up I've ever heard in music, certainly in metal, but I don't know, fellas. I like the song a lot, but I think that's kind of where my thoughts end. You know me and my harsh metal vocal hatred, and to be honest, that's one of my biggest issues with Gojira. Instrumentation and the guitar work especially is seriously unreal, but vocally and more importantly, lyrically, this song doesn't quite hit that legend status for me. From Mars to Sirius as a whole is an album I throw on and immediately leap into my car and drive as fast as I physically can. Not music I can really sit down and just absorb, like a lot of other prog metal bands can. Mastodon, Tool, of course, and even Opeth are just able to hit me a little harder due to mostly the vocals and the lyrical content. I'm going to give this an incredibly strong S tier, I think. Solomon McGuire says, "How to Disappear Completely" by Radiohead. I love it to death. Another top 10 song of all time for me, I think. Just an absurdly beautiful and just impactful song, I feel like. Lyrically, it's just so moving, and I think it's a song that a lot of people can really relate to. Kind of just about fear and anxiety and the tackling of those emotions. Absolutely unreal instrumental work on here as well. The orchestra peaking as the song concludes is something I've never really heard matched in any other song I've ever heard. This is GOAT tier. Behind Mayonnaise. St. Ein says, "Epilogue" off of the La La Land soundtrack. The greatest soundtrack song ever written and the most blessed song I've ever encountered. Fellas, I'm afraid I don't know. I enjoyed what I heard here. Very beautiful track, but I don't have the context here. Also feels like it kind of just bites off a bit more than it can chew. Kind of switches up too many times. But again, I haven't seen the film, and truthfully I have no plans to, as musicals are perhaps my greatest enemy. A tier, I think. Arrow Can't Play says, "Echoes" by Pink Floyd. Peak experimentalization and Gilmore guitar antics. Truthfully, it's their most cohesive song that the band wrote together. I don't think that's a word, but this is probably going to shock you a little bit, as I'm sure every other uncomfortably pretentious music fan will give this song a blowjob right in front of you, but I don't think this is the bee's knees. In fact, I don't even think this is a top 5 Pink Floyd song, but I've got a video coming about that soon. At its best moments, this song is actually indescribably good. A legendary song, but I think a couple segments here just kind of last too long. Kind of overstay their welcome, if you would. I love it a lot, but it's a song I find incredibly hard to chew, if that makes sense. An absolutely unreal song musically, and perhaps it is their most ambitious work. There's a couple Pink Floyd tracks I think do a little more in a little less time. Go back at the GOAT tier. I talk a big game. Zach Shark Attack says Empire Ants by Gorillaz. One of the most euphoric songs I've ever heard, and I love the feel of both halves. It takes you on such a journey. I don't know, guys. I don't think I understand Gorillaz. I think the song is great, but it's kind of all I'd say. I like the way this song has two halves. I think that's an interesting concept, and though it was ambitious, I think the song flows really well regardless. Euphoric, though, I don't know. A song I'd never turn off, and a song I say I'd like, but not one I love. The whole album, to be honest, I think is a touch overrated, to be honest. Top of the A tier. Maple Baron says Close to the Edge by Yes. Craziest song I've ever heard. Blew me away the first time I heard it and still blows me away every time I listen. I'll be honest, this song didn't blow me away the first time I heard it. I thought it was some pretty ridiculous prog, and that's kind of where I stopped. The more I listen to this track, the more I love. Seriously, an unreal song, especially for its time. Some of the production on this sounds decades before its time. Really brilliant flow and transitions here as well. One of the most action-packed and fulfilling 20-minute songs I've ever heard. Truly no time wasted on this song. Another track rapidly rising in my list of favorites. Go tier. Fine, Be Quiet and Drive. My Name is Beam says Drive Home by Steven Wilson. Beautifully written with one of the best solos I've ever heard. Not sure if I said this already, but whatever. I think I've heard a track off this record, but I can't remember if it was this track. I like this song. Some pretty unreal instrumentals on this track, and the production is pretty great as well. I really like the guitar work a lot. Really soothing track. I like this. Also, very fantastic solo. I agree with that for sure. I don't think it's quite GOAT tier for me, but it feels like an S tier for sure. I'm going to go above Gojira. What are you going to do about it? TNT17 says Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd. I won't forget the first time I heard that solo. Super legendary track. I don't think I have to say much. Absolutely unreal. Honestly, everything. A beautiful moment within the wall and a very euphoric track. It has probably my favorite guitar solo in all of music. It's really the moment that I feel like the entire record was building to. Absolutely a GOAT tier track. I'm going to go behind Close to the Edge. B Legend says Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd. It's just too perfect. Yeah, honestly. I could ramble about this track for a while, but it's pretty fucking perfect. A really heartbreaking track. Beautiful in all the right places. I'm going to go GOAT tier. Above Close to the Edge. Lyman Face 1236 says Lover You Should Have Come Over by Jeff Buckley. Need I Say More? Another top 50-ish song for me, and I'd say comfortably Jeff Buckley's magnum opus. Absurdly touching song about love itself, or I guess the loss of it. Jeff Buckley, arguably the greatest vocalist to ever live, with an absurd performance on this track, but the songwriting here is really what I think carries this song. A lot of the production as well. The song has been TikToked to death, but it's really got some chops. A fantastically written song, and a very touching one. I'm gonna go GOAT tier. Above Wish You Were Here. A Horse Made of Grapes 1071 says Duck Koo Kim by Sun Kill Moon. So beautiful and sad at the same time. It's just the most perfect song I've ever heard. Another song that's been growing on me the more I listen to it, I think. I don't think it's a particularly impressive song, at least musically. It's pretty simple, but it's seriously some of the most beautiful shit I've heard in a long time. I think this song would probably just be a little bit shorter, to be honest, but I do really enjoy this track. Very sad story, too. It's about a boxer, Duck Koo Kim, who tragically lost his life in a 14-round fight, hence the song's 14-minute length. Either way, I think this is going to go back of the GOAT tier. No F Off 2862 says Oblivion by Mastodon. Most beautiful metal song I've heard in years. The transitions are perfect and Brent's vocals are amazing. Rest in peace, Brent. Definitely a beautiful metal track, and if beauty is the word, absolutely. I don't know why I said that so weird. The vocals here are absolutely some of my favorite in metal as a whole. Really fantastic track, and a brilliant way to open up a record as incredible as Crack the Sky is. Probably not my favorite song on this record, though, I wouldn't say. I'm going to go top of the S tier for this song. True Gazer Production 7706 says Puente by Gustavo Cerati. About being separated from your lover due to a great distance. As someone who had dated someone who suddenly moved and we tried to keep the relationship going, sadly it fell apart because of the distance, I relate so strongly to this song. It should make me feel sad, but all it does is make me happy that I could be loved by someone at least once in my life, and this song nails that emotion. I'm afraid White Boy only knows Spanish at a high school level, so I don't really know what's going on here. What separates the big dogs from the small dogs in music is when a song is so incredible it completely smashes the language barrier. Fishmans is a band I found able to do that for me very often, and this song I think does it too. I may not have any idea what he's saying, but based on your short description I can feel it even just through the instrumentation. Really fantastic track. I liked it a lot. Very touching. I'm going behind Echoes in the GOAT tier. Gecko says Love You to Death by Typo Negative. I don't know, fellas. This is good. Probably their best song, but Typo Negative has never been a favorite band of mine. I think some of the production on this track is fantastic, but I also think it's kind of overdone sometimes. And I find that to be the case with a lot of their stuff. I also just don't really like the vocals with this band. It's not at all times. Sometimes the vocals are pretty good, At some points here, I almost kind of laugh at the deliveries, especially in the opening sequence. I think this is A tier, behind Gorillaz. Hedel Hecka 3325 says The Moon by the Microphones. So emotional, Phil's voice could make me cry every time. Super emotional track, but definitely not a favorite of mine, I don't think. This whole album, I think, I appreciate more from an artist standpoint than I really enjoy listening to it. Does that make sense? The guitar work here is great, as is most of the album, but it's not really a track I throw on outside of the context of this record. Incredible lyricism, and definitely a major reason The Glow Part 2 is as good as it is, but individually, I don't think I could say I love this track to death. I'm gonna go S tier, behind Mastodon. No Brain 127 says Epitaph by King Crimson. The lyrics are more relevant today than ever before. Definitely my favorite track off of In the Court of the Crimson King. And I think this is at the very least rivals Starless in quality. This song is nuts, man. Another one of the greatest prog songs I've ever heard, and the message of the song is pretty beautiful. Really just indescribably good song. I love it to death. Probably the song I come back to the most from this artist, period. I'm gonna go GOAT tier, behind Jeff Buckley. Mercury says The Call of Cthulhu by Metallica. The song is one of the most beautiful guitar intros of all time, and the S&M2 version is incredible too. Honestly, not one of my favorite Metallica tracks, and not even a highlight of Ride the Lightning for me, I don't think. I think it's good, great even, but there's several thrash metal tracks that I think just blow this song out of the water, even a couple off of this own album. I think this is a fucking B tier song. I like The Moon. 8768 says Hey by the Pixies. Of course, it's just too perfect, and despite the song being very simple instrumentally, I believe no addition to the song could make it better. Honestly, Pixies has never really buttered my bread, minus maybe the Fight Club song. I've never really been wowed by a Pixies track. I'm afraid that hasn't changed today. Very simple song, and a track I definitely enjoyed. But I wouldn't have this in a list of greatest tracks of all time, no way. I do really enjoy the simplicity of this track though, and I think it's great in its own way. Not a GOAT contender for me. I'm gonna go back to the S tier. Moose Antlers 187 says Oh Comely by Neutral Milk Hotel. Some of the greatest writing in all of music paired with some of the most passionate and raw vocals that have ever been sung. It's one of my favorite songs. I'm afraid I think this album is egregiously overrated, only surpassed by Loveless itself in terms of sheer overratedness. The vocals here are just really lackluster, I think, and this track specifically is certainly not a highlight of this record even. Definitely a very raw track, and it feels super authentic and kind of unfiltered, but I think this whole album could have used another coat of paint, a little salt on its steak. I'm gonna go A tier, behind Gorillaz. Jack Plays 3972 says Bored by Deftones. Maybe not the best, but to me personally, it's the greatest. Perfectly recreates some kind of nostalgic feeling for me, and it's so raw and emotional. Everything just comes together perfectly, and the build and intensity really drives the whole thing forward. All this to say he's bored. I don't know, man. I like Bored. Super fun track and very raw for sure, but emotional? I find this track very one-dimensional, I think. It's a very fun track to listen to, and it gets a decent amount of play out of me, to be honest. But I don't think it's a particularly notable track, even within their own discography. I think even this one-dimensional rawness is done better by the band on future records, like White Pony, and even their self-titled record. I do fuck with this track, though. Don't get it twisted. S tier, behind Gojira. Leaf PL says Apocalypse Dreams by Tame Impala. The best beat swap in history, and if we're counting best part of a song, then this song's live version outro is fucking amazing. The song's pretty great, but I don't think it gets higher than S tier, I'm afraid. Some ludicrous production on here, but that's kind of the Tame Impala experience, to be honest, and that's how I describe this song. The song sounds like every other Tame Impala song to me. Got a couple tracks I think differ from his typical sound, but a lot of his earlier stuff sounds very similar. I don't know why. I do like this, but I can't say it's one of his best songs, I don't think. I'm gonna go A tier, behind Gorillaz. Ramon Gomez 9569 says Newborn by Muse. Man, what a fucking great opener for a really fucking great album. Actually, I agree. I usually find myself at odds with Matthew Bellamy and company, but there are a couple tracks, mostly from this record specifically, that I think are pretty great. At a certain point, I think this band just starts getting genuinely silly. That's kind of the only way I can describe it. Overproduced swill is another way, I guess. This is not that, though. This is just great guitar work and a pretty solid rock song. Great song, I'd say, but again, not a legendary one. I wouldn't call any songs from this artist legendary, I don't think. Maybe I'm just a hater. Back of the S tier. Lamont says, Take the Power Back by Rage Against the Machine. Why this one, though? I love Rage, I really do. Their self-titled record, one of the first albums I heard that really changed my perspective on music, honestly. And I would have several tracks off that record in the GOAT tier, but I don't think this is one of them. It's still S tier, but I feel like there's a couple tracks off of their debut that kind of does this song's job better. They're kind of heavier, better vocals, better lyrics, better instrumentation, better everything, to be honest. I think this is S tier. Behind Gojira. BL Heb says The Gun Song by Car Seat Headrest. Best song ever. Storytelling is just so amazing and every part fits, and I don't even know, it's just perfect. Pretty great song. I agree the storytelling and lyricism as a whole is incredible. This track feels like magic to me, to be honest. I went in thinking Car Seat Headrest couldn't keep me locked in for an entire 15-minute song, but I think I was wrong. Really not a second wasted on this track. Everything I hear from this band, I've kind of loved so far. This is sensational stuff. I think this is GO tier. Behind If You Could Save Yourself. The Real Savage 1634 says Limousine by Brand New. Damn. This song didn't really stick with me on my first listen to this record, but man, this song is fantastic. I don't know if it's their best work, but I'd feel wrong to put this anywhere other than GO tier, to be honest. Go listen to this track, My Chemical Romance fans. I promise you'll enjoy it. I think this is going to be GO tier, behind Echoes. Northwest Rain 2399 says Purple Rain by Prince. Feels like literal lightning being bottled. I mean, what is there to really say? It's one of the most legendary songs ever recorded by one of the greatest musicians to ever live, and I think this is comfortably his magnum opus. Maybe the freest GO tier of my life, to be honest. I really don't feel like I have to explain this song. It's a song I feel like everyone kind of knows and loves. I don't think I've ever met a Purple Rain hater, actually. Do they exist? Are they around us? Could it be your neighbor? This is as good as this music shit gets, to be honest. I think this is behind Wish You Were Here in the GO tier for me. JJ Squillario says Head in the Ceiling Fan by Title Fight. The intro sequence on this track is genuinely otherworldly, to be honest. It's hard to explain, to be honest, but it's a very familiar sound, I think. I don't know if that's a relatable thought. It feels very nostalgic to me, though I was never really in tune with Title Fight's music. The rest of the song, alright, to be honest. Still pretty good, but I think once the drums kick in, the song kind of devolves into a very typical shoegaze track. I think the song is great, absolutely an S-tier track, but it's not a song that knocks my socks off. Going S-tier, behind Gojira. 8 Rye says, Falling Off the Edge of the World by Black Sabbath. The song sounds like it belongs in a museum. To be honest, 80s Black Sabbath has never really wowed me. They kind of start to lose their sound a little bit. I've never really been a huge fan of Dio, period, but especially his work with Black Sabbath. I do think this is one of the better tracks from that era, but I still don't think it really matches the stuff they were putting out in the 70s. I think it loses whatever charm they had left without Ozzy, almost completely. Kind of devolves into a fairly generic metal track, I think. I'm going to go back of the A tier for this track. That's all I have written here. Found some incredible tracks here today. Hopefully I was able to put you onto some ball. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.